Please stand by.
Excuse me, I'm talking.
It's coming. It's coming. It's coming. It's coming.
Warning. What is your name?
I am Jay Ramone, and this is the Jay Ramone Podcast.
If the FCC knew you were doing drugs on the air, shut us down!
This gets more work done more accurately.
I will sit down with bands, artists, chefs, business owners, and fellow Oklahomans to talk about their projects and dealing with day-to-day life.
This stuff can give you brain damage.
This is the Jay Ramone Podcast.
Power of the internet is truly amazing.
This is the Jay Ramone Podcast, and I am here with Brian Horton from Horton Records, which is a nonprofit based out of Tulsa, which I want to touch on a little bit about what you guys do, because I really enjoy a lot of the music that you guys put out. But also you are the man behind 2 Minutes to Tulsa, which is a heavy metal festival. And you guys have done this, 3 years now?
Yeah, this will coming up this weekend will be the third year. That's correct.
So for those of you who don't know, Friday, March 28th and Saturday, March 29th at the Vanguard, 2 nights. And it's a really stacked lineup. Brian, you and I, our fandom for metal music goes back a long way. And I remember when Tom Green and yourself and a group of individuals decided, you know what, we've been doing D-Fest. Let's do one that focuses on heavy music. And you guys put together D-Fest X back in the day that was at 18th in Boston. And to me, this kind of seems like it stems from those initial ideas, but you've been bringing back a lot of old school bands that have never played in Oklahoma. Some of these bands are traveling from overseas. I know this year you've got a band from Canada, one from Spain, one from England. Like you're really reaching these old school bands and these metal bands in the underground scene from all over the world. And I feel like you're making a really big impact on the metal community, not only in the States, but especially in Oklahoma. So kudos to you for what you guys do. I know it's a lot of hard work.
Well, thank you. Those are a lot of kind words from you. And I think you nailed it. That's some of what we were trying to do is, and you know, you've been around, anybody that's been around music knows that it changes over time. And as far as popularity, commercial interests, etc. And I really apologize for this super loud. I'm sorry.
Oh, don't even sweat it, man.
Somebody decided to drag this massive cart behind us. Anyhow, so yeah, man. So there a lot of people maybe aren't aware of this, but you know, talking about that music cycle, things kind of got really super heavy, aggro, you know, super modern with technology. And it was like, who could be the heaviest, dirgiest, loudest, whatever. And, you know, guitar solos went away for a while. Then they came back and you had metalcore. And then, you know, things morph and change. And but really probably the last 10 to 15 years, 10 or 12 years, there's been this new wave of traditional heavy metal. And it was these younger...
Thrash especially has made a comeback with the younger generations, man.
Yeah, it's definitely the thrash thing's been happening when you had bands like Municipal Waste, Toxic Holocaust, etc. But the kind of the new wave of traditional heavy metal was this other wave. That was bands like, you know, Night Demon and, you know, Haunt, some of these other bands that have been doing it a little while now, Riot City, bands that maybe have been going 10 or 12 years now. And it was back to more melodies, song structures, guitar solos, and a little more in that Iron Maiden, Judas Priest kind of vein. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that I don't think we've had in Oklahoma, and you touched on this, you know, bringing a lot of stuff to Oklahoma maybe that hasn't been here, but also locally we had and regionally we haven't had a lot of bands that have played like that. I used to complain a lot behind the scenes, or maybe I was whining, but it's like, okay, here's another band that's playing in drop D, playing the same Pantera riffs for the last 30 years. And I felt like that's what a lot of our Oklahoma heavy music scene was kind of rehash riffs from that time period.
You're not wrong.
Yeah, and nothing wrong with that, but it was kind of saturated, so there wasn't as much variety. But I think over this last 10 years, we've had bands like Rainbows Are Free on that heavier stoner doom tip, psych tip, that have been doing some great stuff for 20 years or more. And
have you listened to their new record that just came out?
Oh yeah, absolutely, it's great.
Bro.
Yeah. And the video they did, the first video they put out was from a guy that worked on some of the Tool videos. Incredible video. Great.
Oh yeah, unbelievable.
Yeah. So that band, they've been around, they've been doing a lot, and I think they've inspired some other bands along the way. So we kind of have a flavor, but it's been nice to see some other bands like Blind Oath and Medicine Horse kind of has their own thing a little bit. They kind of got their feet planted in a lot of places. There's some definitely some younger death metal bands that are like Ectospire and kind of a black metal band, Craw. So we're getting a little more flavor in there. Dust Lord is really extreme, really loud.
Dude, I think it's cool.
Yeah, and it's great. And I love that because there's variety there. And, even some younger bands. You mentioned Tom Green. He's been working with a younger band called Eyebolt that's a little more in that hair metal, hard rock vein. And then another band, Crimson Love, that's around the same age. They're like just late teens, not quite 21 yet. But I think Crimson Love, I call them more like LA street metal kind of stuff, that Great White kind of sound or kind of early Rat kind of stuff. So
I've never met them or seen them play, and I'm looking forward to seeing them at Rocklahoma. But I've played their stuff on the local talent show before. They sent me a couple songs, and I was like, "Damn, this band's really good."
Yeah, really solid and a good live band. And then She Hates Me Not. I know you've played their stuff. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're still 16 or 17, something like that.
Are they really that young?
Yeah, they really are.
Wow.
I think Jet, the singer, guitar player, the main guy, just turned 16, I believe.
That's unbelievable.
But they've really embraced that thrash thing, but so it's really cool to see this happening. And we can't take all the credit for this, but it is what we were trying to do was by doing 2 Minutes to Tulsa. This festival was bringing bands that had never been to Tulsa before, playing this kind of style of heavier music on the metal tip more, and then bring in younger bands as well and help build relationships. And what I would say really kind of was the catalyst was the band Blind Oath. They went to a festival in California called Frost and Fire.
Okay.
And it happened 2 or 3 years, but that was Jarvis Leatherby from Night Demon was behind that. And he actually got this legendary band Cirith Ungol back together and plays bass in that band. They were I think formed in about 79, but they started that festival out there. Then that festival did a couple years and it moved to Houston, and now it's Hell's Heroes, and our friend Christian Larson does that event, and it just happened last weekend. It's like a huge European metal festival in the U.S. now in Houston. I think
that's awesome.
I think this was their 7th year, so we jumped in somewhere in the middle. But the Blind Oath guys going out there and building relationships in California with all these bands.
And didn't they record in Oakland?
Yeah, they in Ventura. That's where Night Demon's based, and they have kind of their own complex. And Armo, their guitar player, he's an engineer, producer, and has a studio and Captain's Quarters. So that's where Blind Oath, they flew out and recorded the album with Armo from Night Demon. And so I really credit a lot of what's been happening to the Blind Oath guys for getting out, building relationships. And then when there were bands that were touring, they had those relationships, and Blind Oath started grabbing some of those bands. And then we have Whittier Bar in Tulsa now, and they've embraced, that's Nick Flores, and the bass player Jacob from Blind Oath works there. He's the manager. But they started bringing those bands to Tulsa, and they hadn't come through Tulsa, and those bands love the hospitality. They love the spirit. They love the energy. And then some of those connections started happening with 89th Street in Oklahoma City. Next thing you know, we're building this network of kind of more underground type metal. These bands typically aren't going to show up on like a Rocklahoma stage or a large festival stage. They're somewhere, at the early part of their career, or they're somewhere in the middle. And it's just like, you know, a lot of the roots Americana blues artists we work with, you know, 90% of that style of music is independent, and they're somewhere in the middle. There's that very small percentage that breaks out and is actually able to tour and play festivals and do all the big things that you see, you know, and hear about. But that's not reality for 90% or more of musicians and bands. So for the kind of the metal community and underground metal community, this festival is a chance for us to bring people to Tulsa, be ambassadors for the state of Oklahoma, show off all the cool stuff we have. The coolest thing that I think we have are the people. And everybody that comes here is blown away by the people in Oklahoma, how they have conversations and people are actually talking to each other and connecting. It's not just transacting to get on to where I'm going to the next thing. And we don't maybe think about it around here, but it's kind of a unique thing here in Oklahoma, how you get treated versus going to, you know, the east or west coast sometimes, and bigger cities and more people, and people are desensitized from human interaction.
it makes a big impact for these bands on the road when they're treated with legitimate hospitality, and it's not completely transactional. You know, you're building a true friendship along the way.
Absolutely. And that's what we're trying to do with this festival, is make it about community. We have a local brewery, Heirloom Rustic Ales, that they make a special beer every year for the event. The first year was Doomsday Lager. Last year was Heaven and Hellas Lager. This year is Communion Lager. So that's been fun. We get local restaurants involved. We've had, you know, record stores, you know, Studio Records, Screaming Earth Records, Starship. So we try to pull in as many people as we can. We have T-shirt vendors that are printing merch here in Tulsa for the bands, so the bands don't have to carry it with them or ship it. They can pick it up.
Dude, that's a genius idea. With shipping the way it is, you pay so much to ship merch, and then what happens if it gets there a day late?
Exactly.
You know, dude, you are doing things so far outside the box that make so much sense. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And you're one of the big reasons for the vinyl resurgence in Oklahoma. Like, you were one of the guys who was going to, I would see you more at all the record shops buying, you know, perusing the bins when vinyl wasn't cool and it was actually cheap for us to buy back then.
Right. Those are the good old days. It's not cheap anymore, but
no, it's expensive.
But man, for real, you know, it's nice of you to say that, but vinyl's always been a thing for me, and I'm kind of one of those nerds that likes to be able to hold something in their hands, you know, and even with CDs, everybody connects differently, and there are a lot of different options out there, but vinyl, that was something with Horton Records. You know, like you mentioned, we're a nonprofit 501c3. We're all volunteer, and it's all about supporting Oklahoma musicians and the music community. And that's one of the most, to me, one of the really special things is to be able to produce physical media like that, that's going to stick around in that format. And it's really special when you can help an artist release an album, especially on vinyl. And we've seen plenty of tears shed over the years whenever, hey, the vinyl's in, and you drop it off. And
what was the very first one that you guys had pressed?
The first pressing that we did was we did a compilation called The New Tulsa Sound, and that was volume 1. There's a little bar music place here in Tulsa called The Colony, and Brian Fontaine was the manager, and he's a big part of the McNally's group here and all their businesses. And I just, you know, had become friends with a lot of the local musicians, and we were all hanging out, and Horton Records was just, it wasn't something that was planned. It was just really what we were doing. I started, you know, talking to musicians about, hey, are you recording anything? Are you going to put anything out? Do You have some original material. And anyhow, at some point, I thought, man, we need to do a compilation where, and this was 2010 is when that came out. But we need to do a compilation where we can, hand something to somebody and say, check out all this cool music coming out of Tulsa right now. And we came up with the name intentionally, the New Tulsa Sound. It was a nod to the past, but also looking forward to the future and being, mindful of that. And man, we got a lot of mileage out of that. So that was the first album. It was a double album. I think it had 18 tracks on it total.
Man.
And then, but for me, and you remember this, the first thing for Horton Records informally was my oldest son's band, Blue Eyed Boy Death Machine, metalcore band, and they played that D-Fest X that you mentioned, and they were all in high school, and that was. I think
that was their first radio interview they did.
Yes, yeah, with you. That's right.
Yeah,
I think I have some pictures of that, and that was 2005. Is when that came out, their first album. And then they did an EP 2006. So that's 20 years ago now. And, we did that. And then we did an album with a band called the Panda Resistance in 2009. Then Paul Benjamin Band was, I think, May 2010. And then that compilation, New Tulsa Sound, came out June 2010. And that was the first thing on vinyl was that. Now we're up to, I think we've had, I don't know, something like 60 vinyl releases maybe.
Dude, it's unreal how many you've put out.
Yeah, and then total releases, it's more than 120 or whatever. So kind of cool. I mean, I guess it reminds me of basketball coaches when they'll like have 900 wins or whatever. And it's like, I don't know if I was any good. I guess I was just around a long time or whatever. Yeah.
So what's been your favorite release so far that you've put out?
Man, I really, this is kind of, that's a tough one. I think probably there are two, I will say two. The first one that was a milestone that was really one of my favorites was in 2012. We did the New Tulsa Sound Volume 2, the church studio sessions. And we had the church studio before it was all remodeled like it is now for 2 weeks. And we basically had the run of the place. We had Marshall was bringing kegs of beer to us for free. Lambrusco's was bringing food in. All these local people, they heard, something's going on at the church. And it was all these younger musicians that got together and we hung out and made this compilation. Once again, I think it's like 18 songs and it's a double album, and that was a very special 2 weeks of hanging out.
Anytime hanging out at the church, it's a special vibe, man.
Right.
It doesn't matter if it's 5 seconds or 5 days.
No doubt. And then,
especially then, before it was redone, when it,
yeah. And we kind of had the run of the play. We were doing our thing, man, and it was, we didn't care. And it's a really, really good album, really, really good listen. And then in February of 2020, 5 years ago, we had been talking about doing a record where we would get all of the older Tulsa guys and Oklahoma guys to play with the younger guys. Now, unfortunately, we just lost too many of the old musicians. And something came up and we had a chance. We created this opportunity to go record at Leon Russell's old Grand Lake studio. That was Paradise Studios at Grand Lake. And the studio was there. There wasn't any gear in it, but we brought gear in, and we took 20 Tulsa musicians out there, and we had it for about a week and recorded what was called Back to Paradise, a Tulsa tribute to Okie music. And it was these musicians today covering famous artists and really obscure artists from Oklahoma. And we finished that and didn't know that the pandemic was going to hit and everything got locked down. But we all had that project, in the can, working on it. And that became our focus for 2020. And it came out in August of 2020. It's received tons of critical acclaim. And looking back at that, that's a very special album too. And it's interesting because both of those albums I mentioned were all about bringing people together, all in one place. We're hanging out. It's all about the music, making music, creating, and being together for a period of time, a week, 2 weeks, whatever it was, and seeing what comes out of that. And there was a lot of improvisation, spontaneity, things, that happened. I remember there's a song on that New Tulsa Sound Volume 2 at the church. Desi and Cody had a song, and the band, the Panda Resistance, was backing them up in the studio. And I see Andrew Bones. He's on tour right now with Paul Benjamin in Europe. He's a drummer, percussionist. He was with Clay Welch. And they're just kind of over in the corner, and Bones had this little xylophone or something. And they're sitting there working out this little melody. And they come back to the engineer. I think it was Costin. And they say, hey, we have an idea. And they just go out in the studio and cut this little beautiful melody, right? Clay's playing guitar, Bones is playing vibes or something. And it's this little melody in the middle break of this song. And everybody's like, oh my gosh, that's perfect. And I just got goosebumps telling that story. Same thing out at Back to Paradise. Jake Lynn had been on tour with Jason Boland, and he got there late, comes rolling in. And, it's kind of later in the evening, so everybody was kind of primed a little bit. And Paul Benjamin always did this cover of the song, J.J. Cale song called Ride Me High. It's like, why don't you guys just dig into that, everybody get loose. And they just do that in one take, and just mind blowing. And it's on the album. And it's like, so I feel like a lot of what happens in Oklahoma, sorry, I'm rambling a lot here, but it's a very live music, at least in Tulsa for sure. It's harder in Oklahoma City, I think, because it's so spread out, Norman's cool. Everybody has their thing, but definitely in Tulsa, it's a live music city. And what happens is when people are hanging out and you have great quality musicians, and I think the reason we have great quality musicians around here is people get out and hang out and connect with one another and sit in and learn each other's material. When that happens around here, you put these people together, good things come out of it. And I think that's what we really captured in the studio on those projects, that New Tulsa Sound Volume 2 and the Back to Paradise. It was really special in that regard. It wasn't like, okay, everybody get together, get your charts, rehearse the songs, know it exactly perfectly, go in, now you cut it, okay, we're done. No, this was like, oh, okay, we got this song, we got that song. I'm not sure which ones we'll do. Do you know this one? Okay, what about this one? And they were just working it out on the fly. And I think that's
kind of how it should be.
Yeah, there's a certain integrity. Integrity is maybe the wrong word, but their authenticity maybe to what it is. And I think we've captured that with those projects. So anyhow.
Well, I absolutely love Back to Paradise. I thought it was freaking amazing. I thought it was very well done. And the idea of doing it at Leon's Grand Lake studio was super, super cool, in my opinion. The other one that I really, really like is the Medicine Horse record, but the compilation that you put out that had the Orchard on it before their record came out. I thought that was absolutely incredible and another genius idea that I can't believe it hadn't been done up to this point.
Yeah, and really the credit for that goes to Jeremy Charles. I've known Jeremy a long time. We're friends. We've worked on things together, and Jeremy is deeply entrenched in the Cherokee community and definitely the arts community, and a big advocate for language preservation. And he had this idea for this project where, to your point, if you think about Native American, indigenous, First American, whatever the proper term is, music, it always tends to be gospel albums, is how you hear the language through music. And he said, man, why don't we, think about contemporary music? And what inspired him, I think it's the Maori people in New Zealand. Is that where they're at, or Australia? Anyhow, he had met with some of them, and he feels like they're trailblazers in terms of the arts and culture and language preservation. And that's where he got the idea to say, hey, why don't we get these Cherokee musicians together, match them up with some speakers, and translate and write these songs in the Cherokee language and record original music that way. And so, like you said, Medicine Horse, really heavy band, is on there, and we have, pop type stuff from
it's all styles. It's so cool.
You got reggae, you got kind of bluegrassy, you got Americana, and then Chooge, he put a record out now in October, and then the entire record is in the Cherokee language, and it's really special. It's received critical acclaim too, but he sounds like this old Hank Williams honky tonk throwback voice. But
the Hank Williams cover is rad.
Yeah, yes, exactly. It's so good. So that is definitely another highlight for me is that and it means so much. I'm so humbled personally to have been a part of it and for the Horton Records organization. But I've learned so much, and I can't thank Jeremy enough for that. My awareness and understanding of, indigenous issues and appreciation and learning more about the culture, in Sterling, Harjo, everything that Sterling's done with reservation dogs. And, he continues to pull in all kinds of music, Oklahoma music, into those projects. I just, it's been a real eye opener for me and a point of reflection. And I think and by the way, we're working on a volume 2 right now for that Cherokee compilation.
Yes.
Another one. So, and it's really tough. Jeremy is always super busy, but he's also, an award-winning filmmaker. But the toughest part is finding the speakers. I think there were something like 5,000 fluent speakers before the pandemic, and it's down to about half that now for the Cherokee language. Lost so many, and they're, as resources, they are in demand for so many things around the language right now. The demand is probably as high as it's ever been, with so many kind of arts and cultural type projects happening. Mm-hmm. So it's been tough to line up those speakers with musicians to be able to get the volume 2 out, but we hope to get it out in the next year. So
very nice. Well, Brian, thank you so much for taking the time to do it. Everybody, check out 2 Minutes to Tulsa this weekend, Friday, March 28th and Saturday, March 29th, the Vanguard in Tulsa. Tickets are on sale now, and I'll put the link in the description below, as well as a link to Horton Records where everybody can buy some records. But before we leave, when you buy records from Horton, also know that Brian is a huge advocate for Bandcamp and supports their initiatives when they take no fees and give it all to the artists. So if you follow Brian on Facebook, he will let you know, I promise.
Yeah, that's great. Can I say one more thing before I go?
Absolutely.
I want to add, so 2 Minutes to Tulsa, you mentioned Friday and Saturday at the Vanguard. We also have a Bangover Brunch, is what it's called, on Sunday.
Okay.
At Fassler Hall. It's a German beer hall. And we've done it every year now. And it's really cool. We have a band from New York called Sanhedrin that's playing. Fantastic band, new album out. But we also have Dr. Rock Doctor, which is made up of members of Blind Oath and other members of bands that are playing at 2 Minutes to Tulsa. This Bangover Brunch has been known to include musicians from all the bands from the weekend that are hanging out in Tulsa on Sunday, waiting for flights to leave or just waiting on a day off on a Sunday. They all kind of end up gathering at Fassler Hall, and they jump up and cover songs, hard rock and metal classics, and it's a lot of fun. So if you're around for the weekend and you can make it Sunday, it's an early start at noon, but and you'll get to meet some bands and musicians personally there as well. So I just wanted to add that last little tip.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much, Brian. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on, man. Appreciate you.
Welcome,
Keep up the good work, Jay.
Thank you very much. See you, Brian.
Take care, brother.